everyone, and welcome once again, Mbangwa Media. What am I talking about? World Cup. World Cup is upon us. I say it's upon us. It's a month away, but now is the time to kind of have the conversations, and of course they'll be ongoing right up until we have a winner. And I wonder who you think that winner is going to be. That's not where I'll start, though. Where I want to start is to ask of the 50 over game and its relevance. Its relevance to you as spectators, its place in the game of cricket as a code. So often there's the chit chat about test match cricket dying and 20 over cricket kind of taking over. I wonder if there is a world where there could be just 20 over cricket. I don't know if that's kind of feasible. I don't think that would be a pleasant scenario. I personally like all three of the formats, and I think they each have their place. But this question is essentially to say what is sustainable and what isn't, as the case may be, and what are your observations when it comes to the game of cricket and the necessity to evolve and perhaps even to cull, as some might feel. So, is the 50 over game relevant? The 50 over World Cup, many will kind of speak in protection of it as a World Cup, but perhaps will say there isn't a need for nations, countries, to play bilateral series, and they could kind of just turn up and play World Cups. I'm not sure about that. I think that'd be a kind of tough scenario and wouldn't then necessarily be a true reflection of, when I say champions, I mean you've got to have a space where all these one day 50 over players can hone their skills, and the bilateral arena allows that to happen. There really isn't anywhere else you'd play. I suppose you could say List A, but once you take away the bilateral internationals, then why would you be playing List A games? You probably wouldn't be, right? Because one, it takes a whole lot to organize, and then two, it's a waste of resources if there isn't a direction you're going, if you're not working towards something. And perhaps some would think pool those resources and work with the longer game. I don't know. As I say, I just asked these questions. My own view, as I say, is there is a correlation and a symbiosis with all three of the formats kind of helping each other. Perhaps one and two more than, three. One being test matches, two being limited overs cricket. Those two kind of going together rather than the other way. Even though the 2020 game influences how these ones are played. The influence the other way is not necessarily that big, or certainly not that easily evident. Okay, on to the fact that it is happening and will happen in the subcontinent. What do you think of the squads that have been selected? I'm not going to name any particular squads, but we'll say this. Its importance is obviously quite high because the champions, England, who won it on home soil in 2019, have asked a certain Ben Stokes to come out of retirement. And he has, and he's going to go to the tournament to defend it. Hopefully he's fully fit. He's had his injury struggles, and that's because of workload, along with other things, of course. And having sat out for a bit, hopefully he has the energy, the stamina, and physical capability of carrying the load and being able to contribute to their tournament. At the other end of the scale, in South Africa, Quinton de Kock has decided that that's it. 50 over cricket after this World Cup is done for him. He's just going to be available for T20 internationals. That is internationally, because he did retire from test matches some time ago. And some people would say those retirements, both test matches and one day international, are premature. But we live in this world where what is most financially lucrative is actually the 2020 tournaments. And I did see his name in a release for the Big Bash in Australia, and wondered actually at the time, like, oh, how's that going to work? And the retirement makes it a little clearer, even though there's a clash with SA20 and all of that. All those things can be worked out, right? If there are no limited overs matches for him to do, then he's actually freed up probably the whole of December, which is when there might be limited overs games. There will be, actually, if I think about it. I think there will be limited overs games for South Africa. I think it's against India that they play, and then test matches, which are, obviously he's not playing in that. And then post that is when there'll be the SA20. So he can be involved in the Big Bash. It goes for some time, I must say. He can be involved in the Big Bash and then do SA20 and head back, I suppose, if need be, if that's still ongoing. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Yo-yoing, retired, then not, and one is done. Does that send kind of opposing messages? I suppose not really, because both are taking part in this 2023 World Cup in the subcontinent. The next part of that is, why would whoever wins it win it? And no, they're not just going to be lucky. A subcontinent World Cup means spin, and the playing of spin comes into it. And I know someone will say, oh, no, not really. Yes, it does. Those pitches are conducive to that, or I should say certainly slow bowling. Makeup of teams is going to be important from a bowling attack perspective. Can you balance those? Some teams still think fast bowling, and it can be successful. I say it can be successful because I'm thinking of sort of India's makeup. And when I think of a couple of bowlers, I'll go Bumrah, glad he's fit, Mohammad Shami, and then I'll throw in Hardik Pandya in there as a third, and then probably throw in a Mohammad Siraj, and say in an 11 you could have all of those, ideally with a couple of spinners as well. So does it shorten that batting lineup? It's a question that must be answered for absolutely every side. That batting lineup question, can that batting lineup be longer? Can you bat to 8 and 9 as a kind of 8 as a minimum and 9 as a sort of luxury? And by bat, I mean be able to contribute to a difficult situation when you have to get runs as a side. Because generally the 50 over game is more aggressive. And it is more aggressive because of the regulations in the middle of the game, where before you could go after 10 overs and you have 5 out and that's all good and you can defend, you've got boundary riders, and therefore spinners are protected, whoever's bowling is protected in the deep with those 5 fielders out. But now, because we went from that to 4 out in that 10 to 40 period, it feels always like there's a fielder short, and it feels therefore for the batter that he always has an outlet. And so you must be more aggressive in that time. And if you are, will you, won't you dominate? If you're dominated by potent attacks, then it limits what you can do in the final 10. But I suppose I'm kind of jumping ahead there, because how you begin in those first 10, if you are relatively unscathed, then it flows on to the next 30 overs, right? And you can then do more in that time. But essentially, everything kind of follows on. Teams that have long batting lineups, teams then that can be more aggressive in that period because they have more resource, and teams that have potent bowling lineups with particularly good spinners who can take wickets in the middle. If they're fast bowlers who can do it, even better, right? But spin being the order of the day, you expect that's exactly what you would need. Which are those teams? Does absolutely every team of the 10 that are there, have potent spinners and the ability to cause trouble during that middle period, and therefore makes it all open? No, I don't know. Leads us to selections, doesn't it? Do you have any guys who you think, oh, big omission, how come he's not there? Top of mind is Ravi Ashwin, not there in the Indian lineup in a subcontinental World Cup. That's a big decision, huge decision. I'm sure it would have been really tough. Ajit Agarkar, he's in charge. Rahul Dravid, coach, and the skipper as well. Rohit Sharma. I mean, that would have been some discussion. It would have gone on for ages, because Ashwin is an absolute superstar, and no doubt that he can contribute. Absolutely none whatsoever. So, yeah. Interesting one. That's most notable omission, I think. If you have any others from other sides, come on, let me know. What do you think? Who do you reckon should be there, who isn't? There's also that Dutch side who made it to the World Cup, but you'd say made it with their second string players. And I don't say that disrespectfully. Many of the players who they might have put in their first 11 weren't there for the qualifier tournament, and the side did great things. And so you probably feel it's quite hard on some of the guys who've now not made it into that squad to go to the World Cup, yet they'll say, hey, they're the ones that kind of got them there. And it may seem unfair, but the selection has then made a kind of blend between the best of who were there and what they know to have as a resource of players who could do well for them potentially at that World Cup. Be interesting to see how they go. It's a lot to ask for them to play those 9 games. Yeah, a whole lot to try and do well in all of those and be a threat, a real threat to each side that they play against. They'll have to play above themselves. We'll see how it goes. Afghanistan, watch out. Everybody watch out. Automatic qualification. Always a threat, can score heaps of runs. They've got runs in them. They've got those spinners in them. A plethora of spinners. If they could pick a whole lot. And they'll present trouble to some, if not many, actually. So yeah, nice to see. Bangladesh, yeah, in the running. This is their best format. And yeah, I'm sure they'll be creating trouble here, there, and absolutely everywhere. I don't know who wins it. I genuinely do not. I don't know who I'll say is most ready. I know that for India, they'll feel, oh, fairy tale. Could once again, having it on home soil, win it again. We'll have to wait and see. Australia, being with the shout as well, as they always are. Can England defend it? Don't know. South Africa, same questions will arise, no doubt about it. And they must exorcise those demons. Pakistan, what do we say all the time? We don't know, but exciting to watch. Sri Lanka. Ooh, New Zealand. We always do this, right? Ooh, it'll be in the semi-final, but will they get there? Don't know. Yeah. I hope I've not missed anybody out, but man, I'm looking forward to it. What about you? Come on, let's chat about it. Cheers for now.